my friend, it's Pat Sloan here. It is Harrisonburg Quilt Day, and that is behind me. I still have 2 rows to put on the bottom, which I will be getting done. We are also going to talk about the Tulip quilt along, because I want to take the bonus layout from the Sweet Childhood Memories. I'm from block 13. I want to do this one for my home, here. So if you want to quilt along with me, if you want to make a little tulip wall hanging, you could do just a smaller one. One of our friends did just 4 of them already and has it binding on it and everything. But first, let's talk about Harrisonburg. So we've been sewing with this since Valentine's Day. We started on Valentine's Day, and I have all of my rows but the bottom one done. bottom two rows with the sashing. And today I'm going to talk about doing the border square and a square units, all those little things that make that quilt so super special. It's a border that takes a little bit of time to do. Yeah, it's not just a quickie border at all, but it does, I think, set off and make this quilt special. This quilt was made by Ellen Rebecca Spitzer. And when I was at the Virginia Quilt Museum, Greg and I went down on Valentine's Day and filmed, and I showed you some clips from that. What I did was pull in the one where Alicia, the executive director, told us about the antique quilt, and then I did a little voiceover showing you the blocks again and walking through that. So I want to show you that before we go any further.
So in the Virginia Quilt Museum, we call this quilt Ducks in a Pond. That's one of the names for this block. The quilt was donated to the museum in 1997 by Mary Spitzer Etter. And Mary donated her entire family's collection of quilts. So we have 27 quilts from the Etter and Spitzer families. This quilt is one of the ones that was made by the Spitzer sisters. They were Mary's aunts. There were 3 that did a lot of quilting, and you can identify who made each quilt because they embroidered their initial into the top. So down in the very bottom corner, which Pat will show you later, there is a lavender E, so that we know that this quilt was made by Ellen Rebecca Spitzer. We've got a date on it of circa 1890, and in dating quilts, that can go kind of 10 years either way, so as early as 1880, as late as 1900. And a lot of that's based on dating the fabric that's in it. This one would be a really hard one to get an exact date on because it's a true scrappy quilt. So she was pulling from her scrap bag, so she could have been using fabric that she bought 10, 20 years before she made the quilt. So we say circa 1890. It's a really fun quilt. There's a ton of fabrics in it. The quilting is really great. It's double straight lines that create squares throughout the whole quilt. The quilting's done really well. The craftsmanship is really well, considering it's, the late 1800s and they didn't have all the rulers we have or any of the fancy tools that we have these days. So we're so thrilled to be doing this quilt along, and we can't wait to see all of the versions you guys make.
Can you tell me a little bit about the fabrics, themselves? Is there something for dating, or just the colors for that time frame?
So let me grab a couple reference books. We use a couple of books to date fabrics. It is much easier to date printed fabrics. Solid color fabrics become incredibly hard to date. My background is actually in history, so to date quilts we bring in experts. So we bring in appraisers or quilt historians to take a look at it. But these really handy books, they actually have pictures of the prints that were made at that time. So this one, it's a little bit easier to date because we know the family history, we know who made it, we know the years she was alive, so that helps us narrow it down. But
on the one, there's like an aqua in a couple of spots. Is that a real typical for that time frame, do you know?
It's not very typical from what I've seen. Most of the late 1800s is kind of the more muted colors. But then you will see some brighter prints. One of the ways that you can date specifically like 1890s quilts is you start seeing a lot of small black prints, black with white on them. And they what were called mourning prints. And it was because Queen Victoria was in mourning. And so then eventually everyone just started wearing black, and then they got really tired of it, so you start seeing the scraps show up in quilts. But yeah, it's here, and there's two more of it right up in that top, and that's the only place it appears on the quilt, and it is much brighter than everything else.
Yeah. I want you to see the blocks up close as well, because a lot of us will try for perfection. There you could see that square has, the corners chopped off. Things aren't always lined up perfectly, and with age there become spots and stains. It's just part of the life of the quilt. Ellen did amazing quilting, hand quilting on this with the double stitching. There's her E, her embroidered E. Wendy and I are both going to put our initial on the same spot in our quilts. Wendy's done hers already. Here's the back, so you can see that quilting a little bit better, which is one of the things that Alicia said made this remarkable, was the hand quilting was just above the norm. Took it up a couple of notches. Look at those fabrics. Are those pieced? Yeah, it's hard to tell. But you can see more of points chopped off. I just want to point that out, because we strive for perfection, and it's really not necessary all the time. The quilt is amazing and gorgeous, just as it is. I thought you might really enjoy seeing all of that up close. Seeing the fabrics more up close, looking at the block construction, because as I mentioned, Ellen Rebecca Spitzer was not opting for perfection. And so give yourself a little break. If people made amazing quilts that you look at it and you think that's amazing, and then you go deep dive into the details and you find out that there's nothing perfect about anything. You don't have to be so hard on yourself if you're a person who really takes that route in their journey of quilt making. So the little embroidered initial is super special, and Wendy did hers like I mentioned, and I will do mine when my top is done. I think I will do it after the top is quilted. After the quilt is all finished, all the quilting's done, I'll embroider my initial down in that corner as well. Just, it's just a tribute. It is so cool to be making a piece that somebody made so many years ago, to follow her route, follow her journey through that pattern. And just being able to have seen it in person was just awesome. Now, before we go and just look at the block, I want to tell you that we have 3 events associated with the Virginia Quilt Museum fundraiser for Harrisonburg that are going to come up. And 2 of them, you can get involved with all of them. 2 of them are pretty, open. One is, there's going to be a limited number that can do it. But the first is anybody can. We're going to do a virtual quilt show of your version of the Harrisonburg quilt. It can be a top, it can be a portion of the quilt. So maybe you only made 4 blocks, or maybe you made, like we saw one of our friends turned it on point. All of those can be entered, as long as it's what you consider finished. A variation of it, a smaller version of it, the full blown, all the border, whole deal done, binding on it. The whole range will be in this quilt show. And remember, this is all a fundraiser, so each of these things have a fee associated. They're very reasonable. It's just $5 to enter your quilt in the virtual show. Everybody who enters will be in the virtual show, and I think that is going to be so cool. We're really excited. And you can if you're done, if you're at the point where you're done and you want to enter your photo, that's all now on the website. You can get to it via the link today here down below in the description box, at the project page at my I Love to Make Quilts for this project, or just go to the Virginia Quilt Museum and you'll find it there. The second thing we have is later this year in September. Oh, I didn't write the date. I will pop it up. I will pop it up here. I didn't write it on my sheet here. In September, Wendy and I will be at the Virginia Quilt Museum for the afternoon with our quilts and the antique quilt by Ellen Rebecca. So we will be there for a couple hours. You need to register that you're going to come. It's just an open chat, so you can come and see the quilts, chat with us, bring yours if you're working on it so that we can see it. And it's just be a fun way to come and visit the museum. Of course, there's other things to do in Harrisonburg, so you can go into the town. Well, they're right downtown, so you can find a place to eat there if you're coming for lunch. There's plenty of parking. It's just fabulous. And then there are quilt shops in the area a little further. You'll have to drive to those. Okay, now the third thing will be in September of 2024, from September till the end of the year, and when they close the museum for the Christmas break, December 17th, September 17th to December 17th, we will have an exhibit at the Museum of Harrisonburg Quilts. So you can enter your finished quilt, and it has to have binding on it and everything. We will only be able to take a small number, maybe a dozen pieces. That's 12 pieces, maybe, because there'll be mine and Wendy's and the museum quilt as well. And these are bigger quilts, so they take up more space. The museum is not huge. So if you have a desire to enter for that, in the fall of this year, so you can't do it yet, but in the fall of this year, we will have an entry form. We will take a variety of styles so they don't have to all be exactly with the border. We can have, we'll probably take one or maybe two or three that are smaller or variation. It just depends on what comes in and what kind of space they're allocating. But in the fall, we'll come back to this. So, but now, if you are thinking this is something you'd really like to do, you'd really like to try to get yours accepted, know that by the fall, you're going to need to have it finished, so that you can enter the finished items, pictures for selection, for vetting, for selection. Isn't that so exciting? Wendy and I are over the moon. The museum director, Alicia, is just so creative in her ideas of how to take these things and bring them through and the museum. These are all her ideas to have all the day and the quilt show and all this stuff. And so we're just so excited to be supporting the museum and helping them. And we are thrilled how much you all are participating. It is just so cool to be working together like this. Okay, we're going to go on the back side of the table. And, oh, got allergies. Cripey. Yeah. Excuse me. My voice is like, okay, we got it back again. We'll go on the back side of the table and talk about the border itself. The border of the quilt are these blocks. You'll make lots and lots and lots of these little blocks. Ella Rebecca Spitzer put these directly next to the center. She did not do an inner border. We talked about an inner border, so you know how that hurts me to do this without an inner border, but I'm doing it just like her. So you can see here on the pattern where it just goes right to the body. One nice thing is that the pattern, a lot of it's open. The pattern, the block is open on the side. It's not like a lot of color on the side. So they sort of float against it, which is very pretty. And you'll see, there it is. So what you've got is you're going to do just a bunch of these little squares with the sew and flip corners. So if you've got a little design board and you want to do a bit of fussy cutting, here's a tip for you. You can put them down and you can sew them in any order. A lot of times people will sew opposite sides first and then, press them like this. So you can chain piece a bunch of them and press them. They'll be like this, and then you would come to the other side and put them on and press them. So they actually overlap there. So here we go. So then you would have the other side on here. So if you're fussy cutting and you want an image in the middle and you might be a little tight or something, you can just audition like this to see how it looks. You just use your pins, push it into your little design board. This one is this is a 7-inch size. This is the smallest one. I buy them, I don't make them. And there you go. So this is what you're going to be making. And you're going to be making a lot of them. And so, different colors. And if you're following the drawing or the diagrams, Wendy did the colorations on the diagram, and for my sleepover she did color it, but I am just going to randomly do my own thing. I'm probably going to go and grab them by sets of fabric. So like, you know, here we go. So I would get like this set, and then, you know, here's a pink set behind, you know, here's a pink set. I'm not going to do all these together, because to me that would be way too structured if I did all of these two together and then mixed them all around. So I am going to sort of pick and choose from the different piles and get a variety, so that when I go to set them together, it's much more random looking. I don't want anything structured. You might be a very structured person, that might work for you. So that is what you're going to be working on for however many weeks it takes. And if this is one of your main projects, you know, you'll be zipping these along, but they will take a little bit more work. I mean, they are, you know, quite a few little blocks. Yeah. Okay. That's what she gave us. So that's what we're making. All right, for me, let me just switch gears here real quick and let my fabric for the tulips. For the tulips, I want to do something fun and whimsical. So I have a couple fabric lines I got in recently. One is called Lucky Rabbit by Heather Ross. And so this is what I think I'm going to play with, because I just want something playful and fun. So, and I don't want to put it on white because there's a lot of light fabrics in here, and I might want to make some tulips on those. So I don't know. But here is, so it's got the burgundy, the teal rather. It's got the teal, and I can use this for the stems. You know, on the quilt, the teal, and stems and leaves. That's what I'm thinking, these two, stems and leaves. And then it has these great, well, some of the prints are quite large. And I might use those in the tulip. There's the rabbits in sleeping bags or sleeping tents, right? You know, made with a chair like you did as a kid. Aw, so cute. And here's another green. I could make some leaves with this green and this green. So I could mix it up, the teal and the green. Oh, I like the light green. But I don't know if that would go on this. I probably would use the darker, because that probably won't go here. But here's orange tulips. That's what I'm thinking, some orange tulips. Here's got the stars. And here's with a little purple in it. Then here's the aqua. Now, if I'm using this background here, I won't use this aqua. And I'm not sure I would use those anyways in here. But I could do a plaid tulip. Look at that, a plaid tulip. That would be so cute. And then there's the bunnies in their little tent. And then there's a whole other set of colors, which are lighter. And so I've got some pink. There we've got all the jammies and everything. It's got some spools of thread in there. And there's I don't know that I would do that one in tulip, but I could do this one in the tulip. There's a light pink bunnies. And then here is, oh, it's wrong direction to you. But there's a whole big house print. There's and that comes in a couple of colors as well. Look, with the houses and everything. Oh, so cute. But I won't use that for the tulips. I'll keep it for something else down the road. This might be a cute tulip with the little stump here. Oh, see, I want to have fun with it. I want to have fun, have the tulips all have some fun. There's this house print. Doesn't this make a great backing for a big quilt? Look at that. Oh, and it comes in with more orange. Yeah. All right, so this is called Lucky Rabbit. And I will be, look at that. That's going to be cute. It's going to be cute. So I'm going to use Lucky Rabbit and that very light teal. This is basically the same thing I did the Jolly Bar sampler with, and that'll be my tulips. I will do the same side. I designed this just to go specifically on that wall behind the door. So the door is shut usually, so I see it coming down the hallway. All right, let's go back to the other side. I am super excited about all the things going on today. Yes, I'm excited to start a quilt. Starting quilts, of course, is the most fun of anything for me. That is, you know, I don't know if you're one of those. Is starting the quilt the most fun? So I will be going with that fabric line for this, and I will be starting it. And I'm going to talk about it on Tuesdays, but I will probably be sharing it as I go along. I'm not just going to wait, so you'll probably be seeing these tulip blocks of mine popping up just as we go along. And I wanted to show you this needle minder from my friend Bev McCulloch, who makes the best needle minders. Look at that, the little boot and the rain. So it's April showers bring May flowers, right? So I have a link to this as well. That's so cute. So for those of you who have yet to dive into Harrisonburg, but now you're thinking about it, this is what a single block looks like. And to remind you, Wendy has foundation paper that you can print for this center part if you prefer to do it foundation wise. So that's available. And I will be working on mine. I'll be working on mine, probably in through May on the border. Who knows? I will just, because I have some time, I won't be available at the end of April. So, that's the way it is. So I love you. Mwah. Thank you for being here in the Sloan Zone. I will see you online.